There's a certain kind of person who leads a room without raising their voice, who you'd never describe as magnetic, but somehow when they speak, people go quiet and actually listen. They don't announce themselves, they don't dominate conversations, and yet something about them pulls people in. If that sounds familiar, if you've ever been described as quiet your whole life, but somehow keep ending up in positions where people look to you, there's a psychological reason for that, and it's more interesting than most people realize. Most people have a very specific image of what a leader looks like. Loud, confident, constantly present, the one filling every silence, taking up space, making sure they're seen. But that image was never really about leadership. It was about performance. Introverted people often moved through the world differently. They notice things, small things, the tension in a room before anyone's named it, the person who hasn't spoken yet but has something important to say, the part of the plan everyone else glossed over. That's not a personality quirk, that's a cognitive pattern, one that's built over years of watching more than talking. See, introverts tend to process information deeply before they respond. They don't fill silence out of discomfort, they sit in it. And because of that, when they do speak, it carries weight that constant talkers rarely achieve, no matter how much they say. But here's where it gets interesting. A lot of introverted people spend years believing they're not leadership material because the version of leadership they were shown didn't look anything like them. So they quietly do the work, they solve problems no one else noticed, they listen when others don't. They earn trust, not by demanding it, but by being the most consistent person in the room. And then, one day, without quite meaning to, people start looking to them. That's not confidence in the traditional sense, it's something else. It's competence that became credibility over time. The real reason introverted leaders are effective isn't what most people think. It's not that they're secretly extroverts underneath. It's not that they push past their comfort zone. It's that they lead from a place of observation instead of performance. And in a world full of noise, that quietness becomes a kind of power. There's also something worth naming here, the internal experience of being this kind of person, because it's rarely comfortable. There's often a persistent feeling that you're not doing enough, that real leadership should feel more visible, more assertive, more like what everyone else seems to expect. So introverted leaders tend to overcompensate in private, over-preparing, overthinking, second-guessing decisions that were actually sound. They carry the weight of leadership quietly, because that's how they carry most things. And that pattern, the gap between how capable they actually are and how they allow themselves to feel, that's not a flaw. It's the result of spending years being measured against a template that was never built for them. The self-doubt isn't weakness. It's what happens when someone has internalized the wrong definition of strength. What we call quiet leadership isn't a softer version of the real thing. It's a fundamentally different psychological approach, one rooted in depth, attention, and a kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself. The people who lead this way often don't see themselves as leaders at all. They just see themselves as people who care enough to pay attention. But that's exactly what it is. Once you see that pattern, in yourself or in someone you know, it's hard to unsee. And that awareness alone changes how you understand the room. If this explained something for you, there's more to uncover.